that they don't have a hand that is all just card draw, they will play around Ogremancer in such a way that they play all the spells they need to in one turn and then end with Immolation Aura. So it's not a one-card win condition by any stretch of the imagination. And Alan here has a very different situation on the play, no Octobot.
Yeah, we're expecting a full mulligan, I think, from Alan. For GivePLZ, these anti-aggro tools like Immolation Aura and Warblades, do you think there's any impetus to hold on to them here, or is it just full mull for the card draw?
I think it is definitely for the card draw here. Immolation feels like a must-keep for Token Druid, but against Rogue, they will not actively be playing into that. And if you just look at Alan's list, the threats don't really start until turn 3. And that's more like Mankrik, and then they curve up into Kazakus, Ogremancer, Jandis in the ideal situation. But most of the time, you're instead going to see a bunch of minions like Wand Thief, Foxy Fraud, and they don't come out all at once. It's one per turn. And so in the meantime, I think GivePLZ will be looking to accumulate cards, look for Spectral Sight like we were talking about, but more importantly, he won't necessarily play Immolation Aura right away because you're fine to take a bit of damage that Rogue puts out in the early game. Demon Hunter can heal back up for 8 or 16 relatively comfortably.
Swindle kept on the mulligan, though, there for Alan. It's not one that I was expecting, obviously, with him being on the play and us talking about him needing to get minion development right out the gate as soon as possible. But again, his list runs few 2-drops that you want to just tempo onto the board. The one being that he does have there, Foxy Fraud, which does go with the Swindle well. So I guess just hoping that if he does manage to get that, he's going for an optimistic mulligan, I guess you could argue, by keeping one mediocre card and hoping that the rest just fills out so that he can have a very good draw.
Right. So as it stands, his activator for Swindle next turn is potentially Guardian Og Merchant. Not the greatest, but I don't think it's so bad that you want to Shadow Step Wand Thief here. Shadow Step, I feel, has a lot more utility on beefier minions. Even if you're healing back up the Enraged Mankrik like he did last game, or ideally trying to get Jandis for double dipping, or even Kazakus, it has way more usage here. Problem is, GivePLZ has only left Alan with a 1 health minion, so he can't Guardian Og Merchant without killing it.
Yeah, the Brain Freeze here, again, we've seen this a couple times already so far this weekend, where Brain Freeze against Demon Hunter, you just play it as a combo activator because it does not kill anything. Sorry, realistically on the other side of the board. But again, it's just complete lack of any value here for Alan. He doesn't have Mankrik, Jandis, Kazakus, card draw, anything at all. He needs a miracle from this swashbuckler, and that is not it.
Deck of Chaos. Yeah, that is definitely not. Alan needs Secret Passage, it already feels like, or bust. We're at the point where he's shadow stepping swashburglars to have something better to do.
Oh. Oh.
Ancient of War doesn't even get played in the optimized classic Druid lists, let alone right now in 2021 standard.
Oh, but just imagine, is there anyone other than Alan who could win a game with Angrif, Ancient of War, 10 attacks slammed on turn 7 to win the game?
He went for another swash. Okay, Alan is just all in. He says this hand is not getting there against Demon Hunter. It just doesn't work. Fleet Hoof, Pearl Tusk, probably not good enough. Claw Machine, that is one of Raven's predicted good cards, right? From two expansions ago.
It's not a bad card. I've put that in decks before, and it feels pretty good, in all honesty. Like a +3/+3 buff is absolutely huge on the minion you get off of it. The problem is he needs something to rush it into so that it can bloom die.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. I honestly feel like maybe the Deck of Chaos is Alan's win condition here. Can you get like a 2-mana Jandis? Swap the attack and cost of your minions, right, in your deck?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not useless. He may just play it on turn 6, and who knows? Like you say, there are some good outcomes.
This is already just unlike any rogue game I've ever seen in this meta. But for GivePLZ, the plan does not change. You want to keep cycling. If you go Immolation here and Spectral Sight, I don't think it's bad. Alan has clearly shown he is not playing a regular game of Hearthstone. This just feels like a very, very scuffed version of Lunacy.
Okay, the deck of Chaos thankfully does not have to come down now. Ogremancer, and then you defend it with the Divine Shield from the Orc Merchant. It is tough to deal with now. That off of the Claw Machine specifically is a huge deal.
I think that's the best possible outcome. Alan could have gotten out of the Claw Machine, paired with the Divine Shield. GivePLZ now, I think, kind of wishes he still had that Immolation Aura, although I don't fault him for playing it. How could he have known that life would turn out this way? Every spell just creates pressure for... Is he just winning? Derek, is he winning?
You think he's winning now? 10 attack next board? Or next turn? Oh!
Uproot in 2021!
Where else?
I like where your head's at. Yeah, I mean, what can GivePLZ do? Throwglaive is the only removal spell, but you can only get more copies if you kill a minion. And every time you kill a minion, another minion comes back.
Oh my god, yeah, he needs the... Aura, I guess. The Glaive's doing nothing. Can he just ignore it and draw through to his win con and kill him before he's dead?
He kind of has the win con, to be fair. It's just that it is so far away right now. He needs 9 mana. If he saves the coin, then he needs to survive to turn 8, which is just not happening against the Orc, I believe.
And the problem is that he needs to dump cards without dumping the coin, right? Because he really wants to save the coin to get the combo online 1 turn earlier. And so just using the Throwglaive here, literally just to delete a card from his hand, I think is a good way to go about that.
It doesn't feel good, but it is a logical way to go about it, given the way GivePLZ's hand is shaped. And if you're Alan here, you're thinking, what is possibly going on with this hand, where he just gave him more attack on board?
Do it, do it, do it.
Uproot, uproot, uproot. This is just how we cast now. I mean, it's just kind of good.
It's
okay, very realistically, you probably still just set up 2-turn lethal, even if it's a 5/10, because he is dealing, what, 12 this turn plus dagger, 13, and then you're sitting on the Wicked Stab in hand for another 4. But the thing is, if they can't deal with even 2/2s, how are they dealing with a 10/5?
Oh.
Fine.
Oh. Good at Hearthstone. Reasonable choices. This gets you to the finals of Grandmasters, but does it get you to the finals of my heart? That's what I want to ask you, Alan. It does make it very, very difficult for GivePLZ to answer yet again, though. He has plenty of spell damage, 2 Moargs. If he had one way to actually clear this up, he'd be in a good spot.
He has to use combo pieces here, I'm pretty certain. Yeah. Like, he has Moarg, Talented Arcanist, and Fell Scream, so this is 10 on each target. Alan positioned the Uproot far away from his Ogremancer, which is, I'm still calling it Uproot, even though it's a 5/10, which is the important part. And GivePLZ finally gets rid of that nightmare of an Ogremancer, and now the real game starts, in my opinion. Alan has to find a way to reset the board and has to work GivePLZ all the way down from 30, but GivePLZ has used so many combo pieces, he now has to look for second Og Merchant, sorry, one of the Og Merchants, because he used both Arcanists, he needs to look for second Fell Scream and either Philosophy or Moarg.
It's definitely still possible, but it's going to be getting tough very quickly. I like that he's just going with the Secret Passage right out of the gate. The Deck of Chaos, just not quite good enough in this instance to spend 6 mana on. But he gets a pretty disastrous outcome. This is not an efficient way to spend his mana, despite what the Octobot may lead you to believe.
Yeah, I mean, he can play everything and then just fit in the dagger, assuming the Og Merchant goes on his Octobot. He can Prize Plunder away the Moarg as well, and probably just gonna ignore the 1/3s. They are not doing anything against a 5/10.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of realized, like, this Divine Shield also kind of doesn't do anything with the 1/3s in play, but you don't want to draw it into your hand now, so you get rid of it, and it might do.
Well, that's why I thought he would Prize Plunder the Octobot so he could fit in Dagger.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorry, I mean he would Aug Merchant the Octobot and then end with the 0 cost Prize Splendor into the Moarg. In any case, still very problematic for... Oh, not the Glide! Not the Glide!
It's just not actually very good, though, is it? In this instance, like, he's just dying. You can't spend the mana on that.
Okay, combo piece acquired, but so much damage on board. He's just playing the Skull straight up. Sure, he can't outcast it in any realistic way, so... Oh, that's a disaster. Nothing playable. Is he just dead now?
He's not just dead, but there are a lot of things he is just dead to on the other side.
So, assuming GivePLZ plays nothing else because Fellscream Blast is that last version of the combo available, then he only removes 2 damage from the board, and that would leave 10 on the board, so Alan would need to have 7 from hand, so that would be Wicked Stab plus something generated.
Well, it would leave 12 on the board, right? So it would just be...
True.
Wicked Stab, Hero Power, or Alex Strauss. There are many ways to go about it here. Alan, just getting it done again. Maybe we have to reevaluate the Rogue versus Demon Hunter. Maybe we just have to evaluate it when it's Alan at the helm, because he is dominating this matchup, even with pretty disastrous starting hands there.
I just don't know how that happened. That looked even worse than the Paladin game that Alan had nothing to do for the first 4 turns. He was shadow stepping Swashbucklers and he got 1 unplayable, and then the athletic studies really changed everything because he had to get Claw Machine, which had to get the Ogremancers, and that shifted the game on its head. Almost all of his board presence was off the back of that Ogremancers. And before the series started, I jokingly said I'm going to give the favor to Alan off the back of a single card in his 120 card lineup. I can't believe it turned out this way.
Just proves Alan always gets there and Raven is always right, with the Claw Machine being the nuts in the end there to get the win. It's a tough one for GivePLZ, and it just goes again to the point where the Demon Hunter having a good win rate, I think it was 3rd at the start of the day in terms of the overall classes behind Hunter and Mage. I get the suspicion that that might be being held up by the tempo variant, which to me just feels like it's in a slightly better spot right now. The removal that Demon Hunter, the OTK Demon Hunter has at its disposal, just doesn't feel that well suited at the moment. There's so many Ogremancers knocking about which are hard to clear. Like Kazakus 5-drops, the golems that come off that are very difficult for Demon Hunter to clear. And it's just kind of falling apart with any kind of pressure from the other side whatsoever.
It's true. Maybe I am overrating the deck, but we could potentially see it go up against Spell Mage, where, again, I think Demon Hunter can get there.
Maybe.
It really depends on the opening pressure from the Mage and whether they get an early enough Encounters flow, because the difference that turn 4 versus turn 5 Apexis Blast makes in this matchup, I cannot overstate. If Demon Hunter has 1 more turn where they can draw and not worry about having to deal with minions, they're in such a good spot. But if Spell Mage can curve Apexis into Apexis, that's exactly the nightmare for Demon Hunter.
That's what they really struggle with. Again, it's that size of minion that is difficult for them to clear. Like, maybe they just haven't been drawing the I-beams as much to clear it off, but it's just so expensive to get the clears on these minions. Like, the one time we have seen Demon Hunter get off to that crazy OTK start was when GivePLZ was in the mirror against Tiz, where it didn't even matter necessarily. He was probably just going to win anyway. But GivePLZ is moving off of the Demon Hunter for the moment, shifting over to the Token Druid, the most standard of lists. And again, against the Mage, I do feel like it's probably got itself a pretty good spot. If you time your explosive board control correctly going into like their turn 4 or 5, where they haven't quite got the Flame Strikes and the Mask of Cthulhu's yet, but they're moving a little bit away from wanting to go for Combustion and Brain Freeze, then I think, as I said, with the correct timing, it can be a blowout victory for the Token Druid.
Strangely, despite these 2 decks being very popular in APAC, I don't feel like we've seen this specific matchup on stream very often at all, or maybe even not at all this weekend. And I had some flashbacks because when we were testing, I was Druid versus Mage, but then I remembered Soddle was on the Ping Mage, where you run the 3/5 that blows up Treants instantly. That the same is not necessarily true for Spell Mage. They certainly do have tools to get rid of boards, like Devolving Missiles can delete Soul of the Forest and any of your buffs. buffs and also combustion, but that only hits a limited amount of minions. If you fill the board with the full suite of 7, Token Druid can still very much get there. So I agree. I'm inclined to give this one to GivePLZ.
We'll have to see. It's gonna, I mean, honestly, I think have to be a win here for GivePLZ. If he goes down 2-0, and it would just be remaining for Alan, what would even be at that point? The Priest banned away, just the Mage, oh sorry, the Paladin left over. I think he'd be in a very good position. So a crucial win here for GivePLZ if he wants to move on to being our Week 2 champion.
Already a spicy looking hand. There was the possibility to go off with Gibberling on turn 1 because he had Nature Studies innervate, but I think he correctly realized coin ping happens and then his hand kind of sucks. All he did was generate 3 1/1s, and then Alan obviously gets rid of the one with Spell Burst. So if you whiff on the Nature Studies, it's really just not enough. So patience with Gibberling, I think very well warranted here. Ooh.
Okay. His hand's coming together. Does decide it's time to go in now with the Gibberling. He's obviously hoping for some pretty specific draws. Thorn Growth, Power of the Wild.
Guess the weight? Or
yeah.
I think you go Fungal, right?
Really?
You don't get to play it this turn, but it's 1 more draw and sometimes 2 more draws if you miss the guess, but okay. Oh, he did miss the guess.
I do actually like doing it this way from GivePLZ because not only do you get 1 extra 1/1, but you spend the mana now, right? So you're spending 1 mana, and so if you did find, I mean, basically exactly Power of the Wild is the one good buff card you can get there, it would have been insane, and I think it was worth it for that small chance.
I'm not sure. Okay, 3 1/1s versus 4 1/1s. Obviously, the benefits of more minions compound if you hit a single buff. But if you don't hit it, you really would rather have the card draw because the Glowfly is very far away from happening, and I don't think Alan is under enough pressure.
That's fair. I mean, we have seen players going very aggressively. I was even surprised to see him go right out of the gate. Like, I like his decision-making in the end where he went for that one. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with him going for the Gibberlings right now because it was very reliant on getting a good draw, or a good generation, I should say, off of the Nature Studies.
So Alan coining Primordial at the end there felt very weird. The only upside for doing that this turn versus next is if you potentially hit Lab Partner, exactly, as a minion you can play right now. It felt strange, to say the least. GivePLZ did hit the Power of the Wild, but he is going to play it next turn. This is a little bit scary into Combustion, but I do agree that with the shape of his hand, he needs to get very optimistic. Oh!
On turn away. It's on away. On away because of the Bank of the Mana. That was insane.
So I'm gonna do a Soddle and just code. Are we just gonna pretend that's good now?
Okay, Combustion helps a lot here. That clears up much of this board. And then Devolving afterwards, he can deal with a lot of this.
Right. He leaves 12 on board post-combustion and then 3 targets for Devolving, which hopefully for Alan's sake hit 1 apiece.
Yeah.
But he is not safe by any stretch. Okay, going for a bit more draw. No downside to that. This is such an important Devolving Missiles. If even one of these 4/3 sticks around, Alan is in big trouble. Oh, is that lethal?
Oh, yeah, you slammed that down, right?
Yeah, that's just +6. Oh, wait. 1 off?
1 mana off?
Yeah, and 1 damage, as it turns out. But it's not like Alan can get rid of this and heal up unless
Earth Elemental.
Ring toss is not corrupted, right?
Yeah. So what? The 2 options are Devolving into Ring Toss and hope that you get enough damage off the board and get Ice Barrier, or massive Taunt off of Apexis.
Yeah. Oh, it misses again. It just never hits the middle. And that means even if he does hit Ice Barrier, there's just 8 on board plus Hero Power, and that is the game.
I mean, that's the kind of game that obviously took like 5 minutes to play out, but if you wanted to correctly analyze every decision made along the way there, you'd need like an hour at least, because there were so many points, not only on GivePLZ's side, Alan, a play we kind of missed when he was making because we were focused on the Druid side, but on turn 2 2 was it, where he coined out the primordial studies as well. It got him the extra Cobalt Geomancer to get on the board, but if anything, that just activated the lunar eclipse on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like marginal benefit, the chance of hitting lab partner versus big downside of having 1 less mana flexibility on a later turn if he needed it. But really the bigger decision for me was just how GivePLZ played that one out in the middle. Honestly, the turn 3 just kind of blurred before my eyes how fast it went.
Man, it's such an interesting one. I'm still so unconvinced on GivePLZ's decision to go in on that turn 2 because it was such niche draws. Like, imagine if he hadn't hit card draw. He had obviously his choice of which card draw to go for, but if he'd missed that, he would have been completely gassed out on that turn, and it would have been very easy for Alan to deal with. In all honesty, I think Alan got pretty unlucky with the way that shaped out. It was some insane draws for GivePLZ to make up for what was an unlikely thing to go well for him.
At the same time, it feels like every time Token Druid wins, we always say, oh, the draw had to be perfect.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
just built that way that it hits the absolute nuts. You go for these, I guess, high-risk plays because the deck is built to be high-risk. That's the way I am choosing to view it. But in any case, we arrive now at 1-all, and GivePLZ is moving on to his own Miracle Rogue with the Penflingers still in there, and the Cult Neophytes that I'm a big fan of. He also has Wand Makers, which are pretty standard, so you can already just directly draw a comparison to Alan's list, where there's Penflingers instead of Swashbucklers, there's Cult Neophytes instead of the Foxy Fraud, and then I think Alan has an Ogremancer and 1 other card instead of the Wand Makers.
Well, it's the Jandis, right? That's the other big cut from GivePLZ's list,
oh, really?
Which means it's super low curving overall. No Ogremancer, no Jandis. Like, he'll be able to lock down the board with, you know, pretty high amount of consistency with all the 2-drops, all the 1-drops in there as well. Like, if Penflinger is just a 1-1 that deals 1 damage to a minion, fine, you happily throw that down. But it's the mid-game where I think the Mage might start to struggle because it's very, very light on threats from GivePLZ, to the point where I think Kazakus is just a great keep, even if you don't have any other early game to go with it.
I agree. It's just necessary to give him any sort of substantial board presence that doesn't just get answered by a single combustion or even Ruined Orb. As for Alan, I'd be inclined to toss all of this. I've seen some Spell Mage players keep Primordial Studies, but I'm generally not a fan of it when your deck is not built to have like the most consistent possible cram sessions compared to the old Spell Mage.
No, I absolutely agree. Like, you're keeping sometimes a 1-mana 1/3, and like the spell damage doesn't come into play that often. I would rather look for the Incanter's Flow.
Doesn't hit any of the goods though. You might just be throwing the Ruined Orb at face to try and find something better. Who was it that coined Ruined Orb turn 1?
It was Alan! Alan did it yesterday. I thought he was going to do it again. He knew this time there was no Incanter's Flow in there. He knows all these things. He sees the Matrix.
What if the Ruined Orb just changes every turn like it's a Tavern Brawl? And on turn 1 it contains the magical Incanter's Flow.
Schrodinger's Orb.
Well, in the end, he takes Counterspell, which is not the easiest, actually, for Rogue to test these days. They're not running Backstab. So, unless you want to... unless Rogue just doesn't want to take the risk, they will sometimes give up valuable spells like Secret Passage and Shadow Step.
I would...
+2?
Yeah, it looked like he probably would have picked Stealth based on the options at the start there, and you really wanted to get Copy there, to be honest. But yeah, I guess if they're going for a non-removal turn next turn, +2/+2, even if it just gets 1 minion, is pretty sick.
We can see it's probably going to get 0 because of this combustion, but for GivePLZ, the other options were just straight trash. They did absolutely no upside because Alan hasn't even played Font of Power, so that he was not going to have any minions.
Like, he could load up on this turn, Prize Plunderer, 1 Thief, Orc Merchant to give Divine Shield, or you could just play your Stranglethorn Tiger.
Yeah, it feels sad, but I mean, this also didn't feel like a passage turn because GivePLZ still doesn't know what the secret is. Even if it's Netherwind Portal and not Counterspell, you're feeling sad about having played any spell.
You really are. And the board presence has obviously been lacking so far for Alan, but the burn damage to follow up afterwards is not going to be lacking.
So this is not a great outcome for Alan because it's not of the size where you can brain freeze it away, which I thought was a very reasonable assumption to make after a 5-drop goes down to a 2-drop. So maybe we see Alan deviate with Ring Toss instead here. Okay, just gonna ping. Yeah. Whoops, I got unlucky.
Right.
Okay, but this draw from GivePLZ, that's the stuff. He absolutely needed field contact to give him both board presence and a refill of value.
Yeah, traditionally I would try and go for the secret passage first and then the field contact afterwards, but this just provides such nice board control as well. Very, very difficult for the mage to answer all of this at once.
Big deal though that the Shadow Step gets counterspelled. It means GivePLZ doesn't get to reroll on the Wand Thief, get the card train going, and GivePLZ says, I want to draw so badly that I'm going to use Prize Plunderer on my own minion. I think that is totally fine. I have some questions on combustion positioning, but he already did C1, to be fair.
Yeah, I have a few questions that turn. Like, it could have been the first card played after the field contact being the Prize Plunderer and just target your demon instead to get things going, and then you don't have to kill a minion. Like, again, he didn't know what he would get off the top, so it's not wrong at all.
Right.
But it didn't work out here.
Yeah. He also didn't know what the secret was, so I don't think it's strictly wrong
that's true.
from GivePLZ. Again, Penflinger looking pretty sad. In fact, all of these cards looking pretty sad. You probably just play the Shadow Step so you don't draw it again on the Wand Thief, and then I would try and just hit a secret off of that to spend the rest of his mana on.
I kind of like Mankrik here, Shadow Stepping. Like, another 3/10 with Rush sounds pretty insane to me.
What is this Penflinger doing?
I have no idea. Oh no, wait, he gets to keep it. He gets to keep it now.
Oh, right, yeah. It stays in his hand post secret passage resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, good spot. So he agrees with you on the Mankrik Shadow Step and gets to keep the Penflinger in his hand. So that's actually just an optimization of the play you were talking about. And Alan here, if he wants, just can Flame Strike this. Feels so slow though.
And so alternatives, like, this isn't a board that has to be cleared, of course. You could get away with Ring Toss and AI, I guess, if you want to be a little bit brave about taking the damage.
Potentially Ruined Orb Brain Freeze?
That's also a possibility, yeah.
But if you are planning on Flame Striking next turn, I am a fan of the AI. Okay, so Alan just going to ping instead. So this is maximum immediate damage to his face, negated.
Correct, you are indeed.
Lambie actually just straight up plays Yoink in his Rogue, but GivePLZ, I think, was just happy to see that as a spell he can throw away. Oh, gets one of the 2 3/10s.
Tenwu now as well, like, he's just getting real close to getting the Alex combo online. He needs one of his Octobots, but even outside of that, Wicked Stab is going to be rank 3 soon. Alex Straza can deal the full 8. This is looking very good for GivePLZ.
It truly is. We're at the point where I would think about, sorry, the Cult Neophyte is not sticking, but I was wondering if he could do anything with the Tenwu and Cult Neophyte to make Alan's life a bit harder. But yeah, this is just Alex every day of the week. So tough for Alan to deal with if he doesn't have the Devolving Missiles, but he does.
He does, so he could go ping Missiles Apexis and just hope that it is killable.
Yeah, goes to a 6-drop. At the worst case, you can Fireball and Ruined Orb.
Oh yeah, true.
It just was Grom for a second and my heart stopped. Oh.
So sick.
Yeah. Oh, he's just dead. Sorry, Wicked Stab Apexis. GivePLZ took that Apexis ages ago.
Yep, it was a valiant effort.
Yeah, you don't often take that as rogue. Like, I've done the mistake where I feel like, oh, Apexis always summons a minion, right? But it does not when you're not playing Spell Mage. But it was absolutely justified here for GivePLZ. He saw that his game plan was going to be burn, and the well-timed field contact changed the entire story of what was a very slow hand.
We're just seeing night and day with these mages now. It's no longer about whether you hit the lunacy, although that can obviously help you win games. The flow just feels like the most important card to me. We're seeing all the games where it's not drawn. These hands are so clunky. You can't get the draw going. You can't ever get board control. But when you do, you know, Spring Water actually gains you mana rather than just recovering it. Your rest of your deck costs 0 as well. You don't have to just Flame Strike for 8 mana in this instance to pass the turn. It's just so difficult to beat Rogue because unless your deck is cheaper, they are simply more efficient than you.
Efficiency is the name of the game for Rogue, and that does mean now that GivePLZ is only left with his OTK Demon Hunter, which I think it's fair to say he has had games where he absolutely piloted it to perfection, but I think those games were those ones where the deck kind of gives you the draw in the right order, and that has compounding effects for the decision making, because when the skull is on the left, you don't even have to think about if you need to dump any combo pieces. But if it's just one in the middle, you have to think about what is dumpable and how much maximum damage can I still get after that. Because we have seen OTK Demon Hunter games play out where they play entirely for control and not just the OTK.
Yeah, I definitely feel like against the Paladin, I don't know, it's a weird matchup. Like, my first instinct, this is before rotation, when both decks were still for the most part intact, even though they were in different forms, of course. You would basically just be in a great position as Demon Hunter, was my initial perception, because they can't kill you quite quickly enough, and then you just go with the OTK. But it turns out, even before all the secret package came in, the Libram Paladin could still put a lot of pressure on the board. Very difficult minions for the OTK Demon Hunter to deal with. And if anything, that's even more so the case now. You still have the core Libram package, which the Librams of Hope are nigh on impossible for the Demon Hunter to deal with. The Librams of Wisdom coming down turn after turn, and the secrets just compound that effect. So honestly, I would call Alan a favorite in this matchup now, because I'm just not a believer in the OTK Demon Hunter right now. It's looking very flimsy.
I think that's definitely a fair assessment, especially on top of just the face-up buffs to Libram Paladin that happened, at least between last meta and this meta, not counting the nerfs. There's also just the cascading effect of having more card draw off of the Sword of the Fallen, Knight of Anointment, which means on average you hit your Attendants and Truth Seekers faster, which means on average you get your Librams of Hope down faster. And for the lists that are running Talon at least, you can hit your Lady Liadrin more consistently, which means even more Librams of Hope. It's all just a big cycle of things that are incredibly difficult for Demon Hunter to have to deal with. And on top of that, we have to look at Alan's list that is also running Alexstrasza, which can function as either the endgame burst that is no longer available through Penflinger, or healing, which is very relevant against an OTK deck.
Yeah, we've seen the OTK Demon Hunter, a lot of the time its best win condition doesn't even come from dealing over 30 in a turn. It's getting the chip damage with Chaos Strikes, Warblades over the course of the game, and then getting that last extra push to just crawl over the finish line. But even if Alan does get the win here, of course, he still has one match left to go afterwards. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, because it would be unfortunate for his mage to get 3-0'd in this series if he takes the win here. But he's got himself a very nice looking hand to get things rolling. Obviously, Avenge, Oh My God, get rid of that. But even Hand of Adal, I don't hate the idea of keeping it alongside Sword of the Fallen and hoping you get a minion.
It's tough, though, because I kind of think that Alan would want to get the sword online as soon as possible, which means coining it, but that doesn't lead into a Hand of Adal curve. So I was actually leaning more towards tossing the Adal here.
That's fair enough. My game plan, yeah, it didn't necessarily have like an obvious curve. It was more just mulliganing for the good cards, which can be a bit clunky when they're buff.
Well, as we know from Alan, this hand is the nuts. Do nothing into do nothing. He's still going to... No, I mean, this is not Token Druid. And GivePLZ started with a very nice opening hand because he gets cards that are very easily playable from the left-hand side, which means he slides over that skull into prime position. And he gets Crimson Sigil Runner for even more cycle this turn.
This is
not this turn. Yeah, he's just going to get the skull on turn 5. It's even better.
Yeah, exactly. Just double jump again, skull on 5. The left side of his hand is all out playable, so he can just outcast the Sigil Runner on like turn 6 or 7 anyway. It's not a big deal.
Oh, Alan, it's happening again. His first minion will be Aldor Truthseeker. I mean, aside from hero power.
Is he getting a turn 4 skull hit?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Disgusting. Yeah, don't be tempted.
Right? It's so sick.
even those Crimson Sigil Runner and Spectral Sight will be outcastable from the left, the way this game is playing out. GivePLZ will just hit the end of his deck as soon as possible. There's just another studies. It's got okay. He's thinking about oh my god. That's the thing here.
He's already tested for it, right? Is he thinking about if it comes down next turn?
Yes. I'm just going to say that.
Right. No,
I completely forgot that he had tested.
That's a good point, right? Because he tested for it there, but next turn, he's going to swing again with the sword very likely. So just playing Skull is too scary. I actually think this is very smart from GivePLZ because now next turn he can test again with the Illidari studies and then still get a Skull on turn 5 and be much less susceptible to Oh My Yogg. I think this is very well thought out.
As it turns out, Alan doesn't swing at all. He can have no way of knowing that there's already outcastable Skull this early on. So GivePLZ now. I wonder... Oh. Wait, if he was going with what we were outlining there, shouldn't he have still saved the Illidari studies for turn 6, potentially?
Right, yeah, I mean... He does kind of end up in the same situation now because Alan now obviously will swing.
Yeah, it's weird because GivePLZ thought that Alan might swing on the turn before that, but Alan did not take the bait. He is swinging now that he knows a potential Skull is at 5 mana, and that makes GivePLZ's turn a lot more awkward. To the point where he might throw away a Fellscream Blast?
I mean, we can actually see based on the tracker that it wasn't Oh My Yogg here, so GivePLZ could have gotten away with it. I think it was correct to not go about it, because there are 2 Oh My Yoggs in the deck. It was very likely that one of them would be in play by now.
Yeah, so these are the only 2 other secrets in the deck. 1 Galloping Savior and 1 Avenge. Alan gets to have his cake and eat it with both the bluff potential and then the other secrets active. And we could see a very early Libram of Judgment potentially.
True, yeah. I like going for the buff now and saving it until afterwards, but once you've got a bit of damage face, that looks like a great follow-up.
Ooh. Just play the Abusive as well?
Yeah, are you playing the Armor Vendor? Like, it obviously gives health to your opponent.
Well, my question there would be, do you think it's going to deal 4 damage over the course of the game, which is how much it immediately heals GivePLZ? And my answer is no, so I do like just holding on. Okay, finally GivePLZ gets the Skull.
And he realizes it's not Oh My Yogg, which honestly he kind of wishes it was instead of the Avenge here, because now he is tanking a lot of damage and a 3/4 that I guess he can trade into. But still, this is very scary now. Yeah,
and he did just use a Fellscream Blast, so
yeah,
healing is very difficult at the moment. He is looking for I-Beam. And he did use one, I believe, on the first 3/3 that happened. So Alan's in a great spot again with a very, very bad hand. I don't know how he does it. Bad open, I mean.
Oh, I was looking so heavily here at just slamming the Libram of Judgment. Like, I know that it means that there's a 4/1 on board, which is really annoying. It makes it much more likely that they can clear off your Aldor Truthseeker. But, man, the finish line is within sight. Do you make a leap for it here and potentially fall?
It's tough, right? I mean, It's not as though if you don't play Libram of Judgment, clearing the 4-1 is easy. It still takes Libram of Justice to do that without a minion trade, and there's no way this is trading. So, I still kind of like the look of Talon because it's also a problematic minion to remove. And then he could fit in Abusive just for a little bit more damage to the face. Looks like Alan is going to go for the very icky usage of Justice here. Gives his 10-10 the maximum chance of sticking on board, which, fair play, without Consume Magic available to Demon Hunter anymore, this 10-10, he's all in on it.
Oh, this is so close, though, because the Il'gynoth costs 1, the Mohawk costs 0. He's like a single spell away from just having the OTK.
You're right, it's just Fell Scream Blast that he needs, or I-Beam. And GivePLZ is gonna hang in there from what he can see by getting rid of the 3-4, but we know there's Libram of Judgment in hand. The Throglaive is not playable here, but okay, the healing from the Aldraki keeps in it just barely.
Just here. Obviously, Alexstrasza not playable yet, even if it was in hand, but that's always something to bear in mind for GivePLZ. It could be coming down at any point from here on in. But now, the really difficult minions to kill come down. These Librams of Hope with the Divine Shield are a nightmare for GivePLZ.
Yeah, especially since they can't just be I-beamed. You need to proc the Divine Shield first. And we can see if GivePLZ wants to outcast the other skull, he needs to give up the Ethereal Og Merchant. That just is not happening. So it's this like Throglaive? And then you have to Chaos Strike first to see what happens. Oh! Wait.
So now you have a clear on it. You can go Throglaives, Arcanist, Moog, I-Beam, but again, you really want to keep the combo intact because you're just a draw away from having lethal here.
Yeah, I mean, he has to get rid of the Og Merchant in order. It was either the Og Merchant or the Moorg that he had to use here to get rid of this, and the Moorg is both 0 and not the thing locking the skull in. So he bites the bullet, uses his second Arcanist. There's still 2 Ethereal Og Merchants, so it's not as though the combo is impossible, but it's far away, and he's still just on 10. Alan can go Libram of Judgment if he likes, alongside the Aldar Truthseeker. That seems really powerful.
Oh yes, another minion that has to be removed. Even just a 6 health Truthseeker. This is tough for GivePLZ, and that Libram of Judgment, that is the finisher. Again, lethal repped next turn. Even more with the Abusive Sergeant if the minion sticks here. This needs to be a miracle from GivePLZ off of the skull.
He rips it. Fell Scream.
Oh, this is a lot of damage. This is a lot of damage.
Isn't that lethal? That's lethal.
No way.
I'm pretty sure it is because he hit the Philosophy exactly and the Og Merchant. Oh my gosh, that was the Miracle Skull.
He actually hit it.
I'm in shock. Unbelievable.
That's
He gives the thumbs up. He sees it right away. You can see right there, if it wasn't Philosophy, it was only 24. Would not have been enough because Alan just stayed at 30 that entire time. GivePLZ clutches it out in the end in what I thought would be yet another story of Alan coming back from a terrible opening hand.
I cannot even believe it, Gia. He was a turn away from winning the game. And if GivePLZ wanted to heal for another turn, that was all of his combo pieces just gone. He would have just lost the game from there on, and he needed the kill on that turn. And oh my god, I mean, my heart goes out to Alan. He put up such a force there of a game with that final Paladin display. He was, again, slow start, which is really not what you want in that matchup. He increased his chances as much as possible. Again, when he swung with the weapon, I think was very well timed to try and disrupt the skull as much as possible. It did make GivePLZ delay on the skull for another turn, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. The perfectly timed lethal there for GivePLZ. Oh.
Incredible how that turned out, because if you look at how the skull discounts needed to turn out, not just from that very last one he played, but the one before that got the Il'gynoth for 1 and a Moarg for 0, it literally had to be all the perfect discounts for it to come together on that turn. But it's not to say that GivePLZ only got lucky that game. He was